Let's talk about these Critical Role decks. Are they worth the cost? And let's talk about each of the cards, and I will give a snap grade as to how good I think it will be in competitive play for the standard format in Universes. Before we jump into that, though, let's just talk about the decks as a whole. The out-of-the-box experience, I think, is an A. You're going to have a lot of fun. If you've never played Universes before, you buy the box, you pull out the deck, you buy the Vax Machina deck, your friend buys the Mighty Nein deck, you play against each other. I think you're going to have a great time. The cards are really unique. I think they really pop. They have a lot of flavor to them. You're going to have a fun time with your friend if you're new to Universes and you just buy these off the shelf. Also, if you go to your local game store, they're going to have these like D&D-like experiences where you're fighting the Briarwoods as a team and you're rolling a lot of dice. I haven't played a lot of Dungeons & Dragons, but it feels very D&D-esque. Going to be a fun time. So out-of-the-box experience is an easy A. Card art and collectability. I think the art of these cards is the best ever that Universes has had. These are the best looking cards in Universes, period. Full stop. Collectability with the alternate arts and the alternate art characters being extremely rare. If you're new to Universes, the alternate arts in these challenger decks are like, at least in the past, they have been chrome rare status. There are hardly any of these in the wild. So if you pull a alternate art character, that is going to be a money card. A+ for collectability, card art. These cards just have the it factor. I don't know if it's like the unique designs on the cards or if it's the art popping, the way the card templates are. I think for this are pretty much the best in Universes, but the cards have the it factor. They just really pop. Character-wise, all of them are interesting. They all look fun to play. Some of them are better than others, but each of them is going to be quite good. That's an A. Competitive viability, that's a C. Sorry. It is what it is. If you are not a fan of Critical Role, if you are just a competitive Universes player, you can skip these decks. So if you love Critical Role, these are very much worth the $30, $35 that they sell for at your local game store. They're around that price point, somewhere in between $30 and $40 per deck. If you're into Critical Role, very worth it. If you're new to the game, very worth it just to play out of the box. If you're a collector, it's worth it to go and grab. If you enjoy the characters, it's worth it. If you're not going to be playing these characters and you're just looking for cards to improve your current competitive decks in standard play, you can skip it. You can buy singles. The competitive viability to me is, it's a C. There's a few cards in here. Don't get me wrong. There's a few cards in here that will see competitive play, but there are literally a few cards. Okay, our first character, we have Vaxeldon. I'm probably butchering this pronunciation, Critical Role fans. I'm sorry. Vaxeldon, Cunning Thief, 7 hand size, 22 health. Your ranged or weapon attack gets 3 speed. It gets -1 speed for each other attack in your card pool. So the fewer attacks in your card pool, the better this enhance is. If you're using something like Dual Needle Lunge that clears itself to momentum, then that could get 3 speed, and then your next attack could get 3 speed too. So there's ways to get that like off twice. You also get this form, commit 1 foundation. Your rival loses 1 health for each attack in your card pool. Clear 1 card from your card pool. That means you discard a card from your card pool. So he can either use this to deal a lot of damage to his rival. This is very hard for his rival to interact with. Basically, if you're playing Vax and your rival goes to like 5 or 6 health, they're probably just dead. Because you can get 4 attacks in your card pool and say, yeah, you lose 4. This can kill your rival. And so you can also use this early on in your attack string to clear a card from your card pool, which is going to help you play more attacks with less progressive difficulty. And more attacks, fewer attacks in your card pool means that your speed enhance gets better. So with Vax, there's a lot of skill needed with this character, I think. You need to decide, are you going for that speed and to clear your card pool, or are you going to make sure that you burn your rival for the most? Either way, he has more health than a normal 7-hander. A typical 7-hander would be at like 20 health or 19 health. He has 22. He doesn't get a lot of defense on face, so he's going to need that extra health. I put him in the A- category. He is very open-ended. He can really benefit from a lot of other cards. And then we get this alternate art version of him. Like I said, this is going to be a money card. If you pull this, you just made a lot of money. And then we get Vexalia, Resourceful Hunter. This character is the one that I'm excited to play. I think in terms of the out-of-the-box experience, I think Vex is probably better than Vax. I have her as a B, though, because she's more closed in terms of deck building possibilities. She's more like dependent on the cards within this deck, whereas Vax can take advantage of all of the other cards. But Vex is very dependent on Mark Your Prey and very dependent on attacks that are both ranged and weapon, not or. Right. Vax can be played with ranged or weapon attack. Clear one card from your card pool. Whereas Vex has to have a ranged and weapon attack. That's a lot higher of a bar. But Vex gets to get Mark Your Prey at the beginning of every turn from her discard pile, starts the game with a copy of Mark Your Prey in her discard pile, and then her first copy of it is going to ignore progressive difficulty. So we can't really talk about Vex without talking about Mark Your Prey, because she gets it for free, and then when she plays it, it doesn't count towards progressive. So let's go and read Mark Your Prey before we jump into Vex. While this card is in your card pool, your ranged and or weapon attacks get +1 speed. And then you get this enhanced in your card pool, meaning you can play this on every single attack. Mill 1, if you milled an attack this way, your ranged attack is +3 damage. Otherwise, it gets +1 damage. Basically, as long as this action is in your card pool, all of your attacks are going to get +1/+1 minimum. Sometimes they'll get +1/+3. And then you have to have some way to get this out of your hand and into your card pool. That's why you have this top enhance, your rival flips one foundation. That's a nothing burger. Don't get me wrong, it's something, but you're playing it for the bottom enhance and for the static. All of your attacks get +1/+1. So basically, Vexalia is a character that says all of your attacks get +1/+1. And then she gets enhanced commit. Your next ranged weapon attack you try to play ignores progressive difficulty and gets 3 damage. So once a turn, her card's going to get at least +1/+4 and ignore progressive. That is really, really powerful. Out of the box, I think this is the better character. In standard competitive play, I think Vax is a little better. He's a little more open-ended. Let's jump into Mark Your Prey. I think in Vax and all others, this is like a C tier card. My tiers being A tier is going to see competitive play frequently. B tier means that depending on the situation, it could see competitive play. It's just a little more niche, whereas A tier is just going to be everywhere or extremely impactful. And then C tier is like, it's not going to see competitive play. If you're Vex, you love Mark Your Prey, but even then, I don't think you're playing 4X. I think you're maybe playing 1 or 2. You could get away probably just with playing 1 Mark Your Prey in Vexalia. Maybe you play 2. But I think that's really all you need. And then for everybody else, it's kind of C tier. You're talking about a 3-diff action that counts towards progressive to get +1/+1. This is not nearly as good as Summon Dark Shadow, and Summon Dark Shadow didn't really see a lot of play outside of Tokoyami. Did see some niche play with like Midnight, but not too much more than that. Next up, we have Trinket. I think in Vexalia, this is probably a B+, and everybody else is like a B-. You get to add this card to your card pool. This attack is +4 damage. And then bottom enhance, add this card to your card pool. This attack is -4 damage. If your character is Vexalia, add it back to your hand after it resolves. This would be crazy if it built back into your stage if you were Vexalia, but you add it back to your hand. So you don't, basically you just get a low block, right? I'll -4 damage this, I'll get a low block into my hand. Or maybe I could just keep this and then build it again next turn. But most of the time, you probably don't want to be, you'd probably be reviewing it so that you could have a chance to draw into some more attacks here. This is one of those cards I'm going to have to play with to see how I like it. You can throw it in on offense on your last attack to get that 4 damage if you weren't planning to build, or if this is the attack that you need for lethal. -4 damage, that's kind of like a free half block. It's not bad, but it's B-. Arrows and Daggers. This, I think, is terrible in every character not named Vax or Vex. But in Vax or Vex, it's pretty darn good. It's a 4 low 5, 5 diff. Discard 1 card. If you have 3 or more attacks in your card pool, destroy 1 rival foundation. So discard 1 card to destroy selectively a rival foundation. Your rival does not get to pick. You get to pick. That's very strong. But you do have to have 2 other attacks in your card pool, meaning that you're playing this on a 7. That's going to be difficult. Now, Vax can get around this a little bit with Dagger, 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 because this would get -1 difficulty, so you're playing it on a 6. Vex, of course, can get around it quite easily because she can commit its a ranged weapon and say ignore progressive. So both of these characters have ways to where it's not feeling too bad to play it as your 3rd or 4th attack in your attack string. And then Vax gets this if it deals damage, your next weapon attack you try to play ignores progressive. So if you had like Dagger, Dagger, Dagger in your card pool, you play this as your 3rd attack, it's on a 6 instead of on a 7. And if it deals, you're ignoring progressive on your next one. That's pretty cool. With Vexalia, this attack is getting +1 speed for each card in your card pool, so she can commit and say this ignores progressive. It's already getting +1/+1 from Mark Your Prey, so that's a 5 low 6. It's getting the +3 from Vex, that's a 5 low 9. Now it's getting +1 speed for all of your other attacks. Let's say you have 3 total, so now it's a 8 low for 9 selective destruction. That's pretty darn good. You know, Vexalia probably loves this attack, but if you're not Vax or Vex, this is terrible. Dagger, Dagger, Dagger. While this card is in your card pool, each of your attacks with Dagger or daggers in its name gets -1 difficulty. So the strength of this card depends on the strength of the Dagger package. If the Dagger attack package is really, really good, then this attack is also going to be good because you're basically not counting towards progressive if you're playing all daggers, and you can spend a momentum to add a card with Dagger or daggers in its name, not named Dagger, 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 to your hand. Otherwise, you could just go on this like Dagger, 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 you know, kind of like string as long as you have momentum. But they're saying that you have to grab something else to your hand. It's a 3 high 6. It's very, very understated for a 6 diff attack. It could have probably had some more stats here. It doesn't count towards progressive. That's why it's a 6 difficulty attack. If you're playing all daggers, those get -1 difficulty, basically saying that this card doesn't count towards progressive in your card pool. But it's really dependent on the Dagger attack package, and I don't think that the daggers are that good. So in everybody else, I'm giving it a C. In Vax, I'll give it a B+, because it sets up arrows and daggers pretty well. But in everybody else, the Dagger attack package needed to have been stronger for this card to be good. Unlike the death symbol, you get like Deception Dagger and Finger Daggers. Both pretty good, but not quite good enough. Next up, we have Vax's 4 diff attack, 4 mid 4. If this deals damage, destroy 1 committed foundation. Okay, a 4 mid 4 on a 4 diff that doesn't do anything unless an if statement comes true. And then even then you're destroying a committed rival foundation. This is C tier to me. Flaming Arrow, we have basically a blank 5 mid 3 on a 4 diff with powerful 3. It is a nice 1 high block, but once again, it's unless you're dumping momentum into this, it is a nice momentum outlet because it's pretty fast. At 5 speed, it can be played late in an attack string since it's a 4 difficulty attack. But I'm talking in like standard competitive play as a whole. This is not going to be nearly the strength to play in a legitimate competitive deck. Piercing Dagger Strike is the worst of this bunch. 3 mid 5, stun 1, 2 bid block. What are we doing here? These 3 attacks, like, come on. Okay, Storm of Arrows, 5 diff, 4 high 5, Echo Attack, ranged weapon spell. You may spend ranged weapon attacks from your card pool as though they were momentum to pay for this attack's Echo ability. Okay, that's the only thing on this card, by the way. Echo is a keyword that says after this attack resolves, you can spend a momentum to play it again. So this attack is saying instead of spending a momentum to play it again, you can spend a card from your card pool. Basically, you can clear a card from your card pool, making your progressive difficulty better for future attacks. Or for like Vax, that means that you can get more speed on your attacks with his top enhance. For Vexalia, you can play this late in an attack string and then clear a card from your card pool with it to pay for the Echo, right? You can say that this ignores progressive, play it on a 5, and then clear your card pool of an attack to play for the Echo. That seems very, very nice. For all other characters, it's a B+. Why is it so high, even though ranged and weapons, there's not a lot of them? I guess you get Walk the Dog on air. That's probably the best one that you can be spending to pay for this Echo. It can spend itself. If this is your opening attack, you'll say, I'll spend this to pay for its Echo. Oh, there's no attack, it's aborted. Basically, it's a 5 difficulty attack, 4 high 5 that self-clears itself from the card pool and everybody else. It's like Crow and Frog, right? 5 diff, 4 high 5, 2 mid block, doesn't count towards progressive. That's basically what Storm of Arrows is as an opener. In other characters, there will always be a place for that. I'm thinking also of Jester. We'll see that in the Mighty Nein deck, that she can add spell attacks to her hand. So she could play Storm of Arrows, spend Storm of Arrows, discard momentum, grab Storm of Arrows, play Storm of Arrows, spend Storm of Arrows, discard momentum, grab Storm of Arrows, and just go on like this little loop thing here, since this is a spell attack. So other characters will benefit from just a attack that self-clears itself out of the card pool. There's something here, but it's not A tier. There's probably better things to be doing, but okay. 5 difficulty, 4 low 5. After this card leaves your card pool, your rival loses 1 health. That's understated for a 5 diff, and to have such a weak ability, you have to be having a way to clear it from the card pool, and then just losing 1. That just takes its stats. If you add in that 1 stat, like that takes its stats back to just like barely playable, and there's nothing else going on here. It's another C tier. You can see what I was saying about competitive viability on these decks being C tier. Like a lot of these attacks just aren't doing anything. Dagger, dagger, dagger is good, but it's only working with this dagger attack package. Arrows and daggers is good if you're Vax or Vex. And then Storm of Arrows is really good if you're Vax or Vex, but this is the attack that's probably most playable by other characters. Jumping into the foundations, I'm going to pick up the pace here. A Mother's Embrace, flip after a card leaves your card pool, ready this card. A 3 low block, 1 diff spam foundation that readies itself is never going to be bad, but it's also never going to be good, B-. Trinket for Vax, this is a way we can build Trinket by removing it and spending a momentum. But again, Trinket would have to be a little bit better for this to truly be good. So in everybody else, I'm going to put the C tier for Vex. I'll give it just I'll say B-, because this flip for +2 damage or +3 if you have an ally card in your stage. If you're playing a lot of ally foundations, flip for +3 damage on a 2 diff isn't too bad. Clasp membership, 0 difficulty, 3 high block, flip after you partially block and attack, gain 2 health. I really like this. You know, if you ever have to half block something, just flip this to gain 2. That's really good on a 0 diff, B+. Dragon Lore Expert, spam foundation that commits for -2 speed. That's always going to be at least B tier. It's not doing much else than that. Maybe it's -1 damage. It's a 3 mid block. I'll put it B-. Elvish Tutoring. Everybody else is C- because it's Vax Machina only. Flip, commit, search your deck for an attack, reveal it, shuffle your deck, then put it on top of your deck. So you have to have a way to draw it in order for this to really be doing something. Otherwise, you just stack your deck with an attack. So you've got to draw it. There's something there for Vax or Vex, like C+ tier, but not great. Flirting and Flattery, 1 diff, 3 high block, flip. After your end phase begins, draw 1 card. If you've played 1 or more attacks this turn, discard 1 card. Basically, it's a flip to draw if you just had a build turn. That's interesting. There's something there. But most of the time, if I am playing a spam foundation that flips to draw, I want it to be versatile and usable at any time. It's interesting to be able to use this on a build turn when you typically can't use your foundations as enhances, but not quite there, probably B-. Prank War, destroy after your rival flips a foundation as a cost, destroy it. Basically, you're destroying your 2 diff foundation for your rival to destroy their face down foundation. This is a 3 mid block. It's nice that it checks a 6. It's not getting it into the B tier, C+. Shameless Haggler, 2 diff, 2 low block. I think this has the most personality of these foundations. We get flip, discard 1 card, draw 1 card, and gain 2 health. Then your rival may draw 1 card and gain 2 health. If they do, draw 1 card and gain 2 health. Let's just say your rival does not do that. Then this is basically a 2 difficulty that says flip, discard a card, draw a card, gain 2. That's not terrible, but it's not paying off the 2 diff. If your rival goes ahead and gains 2 and draws, then you can also draw another 1 and gain 2. At that point, you have discarded 1 to draw 2 and gain 4. That's pretty worth it, but you've also given your rival a small benefit. It is a 2 low block. I could see this finding play. Ultimately, like on Earth, I'd just rather play something like Chivalrous Competitor, where we flip and both draw, and it's protecting my stage, and it is a spam foundation low block. But this one seems a lot of fun, and I could see it making its way into decks B+. Twins Bond, 2 diff, 4 check, 3 low block, enhance, remove, choose 1 card from each player's card pool and clear it. If the chosen cards share a card type, your attack gets +1/+1. Okay, you are removing your 2 diff foundation basically to clear your card pool 1, but you also are giving all of your attacks -1 speed because you're clearing something from your rival's card pool, and now they're going to have an easier time blocking. I could see a 2 diff 4 check self-clearing your card pool, but the coming with the -1 speed and having a 3 low block instead of like a 2 low block or a 1 low block, it's not quite enough here for me to say A tier. I could see it finding play in some niche circumstances, but not everywhere. I'll give it a B. Venture Forth from Singorn, 3 difficulty, 4 check, 2 high block, form, remove, draw 2 cards. You cannot play foundations for the rest of this turn. So if you're going in on a lethal attack string, you can remove this to draw 2. The downside is that you are removing a ready foundation, which is going to hurt your checks if you're trying to play this long attack string. But sometimes all you need is that one last attack, and this can help you go and find it. And it's another way that we're getting a form draw in this game, something that we didn't have a lot of just before Yu Yu Hakusho, and now we have a lot of form draw cards. Those will always be quite good. I'll give it a B+. That takes us to the end. I'm going to give an overview of all of the cards. From the 19 non-character cards, I've got 0 A tier, 9 in the B tier, and 10 in the C tier. The 4 of cards in the B tier that I gave a B+ were Class Membership, Venture Forth, Shameless Haggler, and Storm of Arrows. Ultimately, I think if you are buying this deck as a competitive player, those are the 4 cards that you are buying the deck for. Like I said, I think the art on these cards is incredible. I really like the out-of-the-box play experience. I enjoy the characters. Competitively speaking, I don't think the Vax Machina deck is that good. This is not a deck for veterans of the game who need to go out and buy it to stay competitive with their decks. Now let's jump into the Mighty Nine characters. First, we have Jester Lavore Prankster Priestess. I'm giving her a B+. She is a 6-hander with 31 health, 2 enhances. Top enhance, spend 1 momentum, add a spell card from your discard pile to your hand. That is not once per turn. Also, a lot of her spells are attacks. So in a lot of cases, this is spend a momentum, add an attack from your discard pile to your hand. That's very, very good. And bottom enhance, once per turn, commit 1 foundation. Your rival spends 1 momentum. Both players add the top card of their deck to their momentum. Basically saying you get a momentum, but your rival does not get an extra momentum. They had to spend 1 and then they get 1. Now, if your rival started out with 0 momentum, then both of you are getting momentum. But most of the time, it will be your rival just switches out 1 of their momentum, but stays the same, and you're getting a bonus momentum. You're then going to use that momentum for your top enhance to go and grab an attack. Basically, this is saying that once per turn, you can commit a foundation, grab an attack from your discard pile to your hand. That's quite good. Now, there are other things that she can be doing with spells. We're going to go shortly to Wound Restore, one of her best action spells. But in my opinion, a lot of the times you're going and grabbing an attack. Ultimately, I think this is B+, right on the cusp of A tier, but she is very dependent on spells being quite good. And I think there are a number of good spells, but not quite to the degree where I think that would push the character into A tier. Here is her alternate art, and then we get Not the Brave, Irritable Goblin, a 7-hander with 22 health, top enhance twice per turn, add the top card of your discard pile to your hand, discard 1 random card. If you discarded a copy of the same card, add it to your momentum. There's a lot going on there. Let's break it down. you are going to add the top card of your discard pile to your hand, and then you discard a random card. If it's the same, you're going to add it to your momentum. So if you had 0 cards in hand, then you can use this enhance basically to put the top card of your discard pile to your momentum, because you'll pick it up, you'll discard it, it's the same card, put it into your momentum. Other times, you are basically drawing the top card of your discard pile and then discarding something random. So you basically get to see 9 cards on your turn, but there's no guarantee at what you're discarding. I think that enhance is going to be a lot of fun. Bottom enhance, mill 1. If you have less health than your rival, your attack gets +1 damage and gains stun 1. We do have an if statement there, but being a 7-hander with 22 health, chances are you have less health than your rival. +1 damage and stun 1 for free. Very, very good. Stun 1, especially when you're going on an attack string. After 4 or 5 attacks, that becomes stun 4, stun 5. Your last attack is probably getting through. If you have less health than your rival, a lot of other 7-handers are like 20 health, 19 health, so you might get locked out there a few times, but by and large, I think it'll be online. You probably will be playing some ways where you can lose health on your own just to make sure that you're at less health than your rival. All in all, I give this character a B. I think this character seems to me more fun than Jester, but Jester just feels like she's doing better things on face and more reliably. Not seems fun. Seems random, a little bit chaotic. Alternate art here. 3 diff, 4 check, 3 mid block, wound restore. A spell action for Jester. First enhance, remove, gain 5 health. Enhance, remove, if your attack deals damage, your rival loses 4 health. So we can play this from our hand as a 3 diff, check it. That's the problem here, is that it's a 3 diff that you have to check, and both of these are enhances, so they have to happen during attacks. Let's say you use the first enhance on your first attack. Now you have to check a 4 on it. That's not terrible, but let's say you're like 3 attacks in. Then even on that bottom enhance, you're going to have to check a 6 on this to get that extra 4 damage. It's not nearly as free as, say, like Sugar Rush Power Up on Fire. That's a 1 diff that you can play and then get +2 speed and +4 damage. A lot of times, I imagine you're using this on defense too, when you don't have any cards in your card pool, and you can first enhance, remove, gain 5 health. Don't get me wrong, that's very, very good, but there's a lot of good actions in the game. And so this is fighting for spots with other very, very good actions. You can't just run a million actions. It does check a 4. It is a 3 mid block. The 3 diff is adding a cost to it. I think in everybody else, I'll give this a B. I think it's pretty solid. Remove to gain 5 health or to add 4 damage to your attack, basically. But in Jester specifically, I'll give an A-, because you can always pick this up, and then you can first enhance, gain 5 health. Knott's Flask. This is the first. We did it, guys. We have an A-tier card in the Critical Role decks. 1 difficulty asset, 2 mid block. After you build this asset, add 3 booze counters to it. If there are no booze counters on this card, your attack gets -2 speed. Don't ever let your attacks get -2 speed. And that is a static, so it's just in play at all times. Don't ever let this asset get to 0 booze counters. Enhance. Commit, remove 1 booze counter. This attack gets +3 or -3 damage. Enhance once per turn, mill 3. If you did not mill an attack this way, add 1 booze counter to this card. Basically, if you build this, you're going to get 2 instances of +3 or -3 damage. And then sometimes you'll get a 3rd or 4th instance as the game goes on, and you get to use that bottom enhance to gain booze counters. Let's say you never gain another booze counter. You get to use it twice, +3 or -3 damage. Let's just think about how much better this is than Trinket that we saw earlier. Trinket was a 2 diff asset, 2 low block, and then you could add it to your card pool for -4 damage. But you're adding it to your card pool. Or you're adding it to your card pool for +4 damage. This is +3 or -3 twice over. So that's +6 or -6 damage on a 1 difficulty asset. And you do not have to add this to your card pool. That's crazy, right? You build in a 1 diff and you say -6 damage? or you're saying plus 6 damage, that's crazy. That is a really, really good exchange rate. I think that this asset is going to be everywhere. I can already see it has chaos. Mimic is going to love this card. I'm going to be playing this everywhere. I think it's crazy. Void, I think Void Jin would really appreciate this damage pump. I could even give this card an A+, I think. Maybe I'm too excited about it, but it's nice to finally have a card in these Critical Role decks that I'm truly excited about competitively. Knots Flask, A tier, easy. Next up, Big Freaking Explosion. Now we're on a roll. We got 2 A tier cards back to back. 5 difficulty, 2 high block, 5 high 5. It is a spell, so Jester can pick this up basically at any time. Spend 1 momentum, mill 3. This attack gets 1 damage for each attack in your discard pile. If you milled 3 attacks this way, you lose health equal to half this attack's damage rounded down after it resolves. So if you have 10 cards, let's say you have 10 attacks in your discard pile. That's not crazy to assume. Then this becomes 5 high 15 for 1 momentum. Basically, that was just a powerful 10 on the card. It doesn't need other text. I think that alone, very, very good. A lot of characters are just looking for that dunk attack. This is not too heavily costed. 1 momentum is very, very doable. In Jester, if you spent your momentum to go and pick this up, now you are spending 2 momentum, but it's worth it if you're going to kill your rival. I'm going to give it A-. I think it's a flavor win, that second sentence, that if you milled 3 attacks this way, that you also get a little blown up in the big freaking explosion. I love the just card title of this card. It has a lot of personality here with the imagery. I'm all in, A-. This card will see competitive play. Next up, Duplicious Attack. This is a 4 diff, 4 low, 4, 1 mid block. All it has is a combo enhance. If you played a spell and then you play this, then you can say your next attack gains Echo. The big benefit of this is you're giving an attack Echo that has no business getting Echo. The downside is that you're giving an attack Echo that is already being played on 2+ progressive difficulty, because you had to play your spell and then you had to combo with this. So now you're playing an Echo attack. If it was a 4 diff attack, now it's going to be on a 6, and then you're going to have to Echo it on a 6. You don't just get to Echo it right away when there's not many cards in your card pool. That's typically when you want to play your Echo attacks, is early in your attack string. This is asking you to do it late or third at the very least. But that's really fascinating. Right away, I'm thinking about Big Freaking Explosion, that you can go Duplicious Attack and then give this thing Echo. And then if you have 3, okay, you do have to have momentum built up, right? The momentum for the Echo, the momentum to use the Enhance twice. So you had to have 3 momentum. But this attack has no business getting Echo. And with this, you can. I think this is very, very fun. I love this design of Echo with giving something Echo that has no business getting it. Next up, Hand Axe Swing, 5 high 5, blank, 1 low block. I hate blank attacks, C-. Sniping Bolt, I'm going to give it a B-. I almost gave it a B+ when I thought it counted itself. It's 3 difficulty, 2 mid 3, 2 high block. If your rival's not taking damage this turn, this attack is +1/+1 for each attack in your card pool. When I first read this, I thought it counted itself, and I thought it was quite good. Because if you played it as your 3rd attack, they hadn't taken damage yet, it would be a 5 mid 6. That's 11 stats on a 3 diff. That's pretty decent. Even if you played it as your 2nd attack, it would be a 4 mid 5, which is 9 stats for a 3 diff. However, because it's a static, it's live when you're attempting to play the card. We have a lot of cards like Wind Up Punch, for example, that have a static that if something happens, then this gets -1 difficulty. So those statics apply before you make the check, basically. And then this card technically isn't in your card pool because you haven't officially played it yet. So it only counts the other attacks, is what has been explained to me on the rules Discord, making it a little bit worse. It is a 3 diff. It doesn't need many stats to be good. So I'm not going to put it in the C tier. It deserves to be in the B tier, but B- is where we are at. Spirit Lollipop, 5 diff, 5 mid 5, 2 mid block. You can drop this from your hand. That's what this parentheses, for people new to the game, this parentheses hand means you can just drop it from your hand and you don't even have to play a check and this thing happens. So you can just remove it. Your attack gets 3 damage, gain 2 health. That's really, really neat. That has no cost to play late in your attack string. So remember how I said wound restore, that bottom enhance, remove if your attack deals damage, your rival loses 4 health? That is a very heavily costed action to take because you're playing this enhance on like a 6 just to basically get 4 damage. And then you have to check the 6 and make sure you can pass it. But if we use our top enhance spend 1 momentum to go and get Spirit Lollipop into our hand, Spirit Lollipop is free. We could play this on our 4th or 5th attack. We don't have to make a check, give it +3. Sure, +3 is not as good as +4, but we're getting +3 and gaining 2 health. I could definitely see Jester going and grabbing Spirit Lollipop with her enhance and then just dropping this down for 3 damage. Basically, if Jester is playing Spirit Lollipop, Jester always has access to powerful 3. You can spend a momentum, get Lollipop, drop Lollipop. Jester just always has powerful 3 on whatever attack she wants. Bottom response. After this attack is blocked, your next attack gets 3 damage. So it's a 5 mid 5. If it's blocked, your next one gets 3. That's fine. I think the better use of this card, honestly, is just to use it from the hand. As an attack, it's fine if you didn't draw a lot of other things. You can use it as like a budget opener. I don't love it as an attack. I do love it being played from the hand. For that reason, I'll give it a B. And Jester, who can go and pick it up at any time, I'll give it an A-. For difficulty, 5 mid 4 targeting blast. After this attack deals damage, your next attack gets 2 speed. It's a 2 low block. It has powerful 2. There's enough going on here where I think it's B tier. It's not really doing anything interesting though. It's just kind of a value card. You know, we're a little bit overstated. We have a small response. We have powerful. We are a low block. For Tinker's Bolt. 4 diff, 3 low 4. After this attack deals damage, mill 2. If you milled an attack this way, add 1 momentum to your hand. This isn't doing it for me. It's a little understated. It's a mid block. And then we get this response that we can potentially get a momentum to our hand. There's a good chance maybe we're playing this and we don't even have momentum. So this is just blank. Maybe we don't want to bring our momentum into our hand. If we do want our momentum into our hand, maybe we don't mill an attack when we mill 2. Yeah, and then you're just playing a 4 diff 3 low 4. I'll give it a C+ because sometimes it's doing a thing, but I don't think it's going to see serious play. Averse to Water, 1 diff, 3 low block, 5 check. Commit, this attack gets -2 speed. If it has the life or water symbol, it gets -1 damage. Okay, this is basically the same thing as like the Vax Machina card, Dragon Lore, I think it was. A 1 diff low block that commits for -2 speed will never be bad, but I think there's better things to be doing in serious competitive decks. B-. Button Collector. 3 diff, 5 check, 2 low block. You can spend a momentum, seal 2 rival foundations. When I first read that, I immediately thought of Death Shoto Todoroki 4 and how much he was going to like this. But it does have a last sentence here. Your rival may destroy 1 foundation to cancel this ability. Okay, if I'm the rival, I am almost always destroying a foundation to cancel that ability. But what that means is that you spent a momentum for your rival to destroy a foundation. There's a lot of death decks and void decks that really focus on foundation destruction. So it's a win-win on those decks. Force your rival to destroy 1, or you're going to get to seal 2 really good things. Bottom enhance, commit, draw 1 card for each copy of Button Collector. If you drew 2 or more cards this way, flip this card. This is really cool. You can commit basically to draw a card. That's always going to be baseline good. Or you can commit to draw 2 or 3, but then you're going to have to flip it as well. I think this card is really cool. I ultimately think it's very, very fair because your rival has interaction with the top enhance and then the bottom enhance. If it's really good, then it ends up getting flipped. Ultimately, I put it at the B tier. I also don't think that bottom enhance is online very often because would you really be playing 4 copies of this 3 diff in most decks? In most decks, you're playing like 1 or 2 of a couple different 3 diffs. I'd be kind of shocked if you're actually playing this at a 4 of, but it could happen. 0 difficulty, 3 mid block, hostile introduction. The best thing about this 0 difficulty foundation is Mighty Nein Breaker 2. For Jester and not, you're 4xing this card no matter what, no questions asked. For a 0 diff to have Breaker 2 is crazy. Breaker 2 is, if you block with this card, your rival's next check gets -2. After this card enters your discard pile during this enhanced step, your rival loses a health. This effect cannot reduce your rival's health below 1. Basically, if you're playing something that's destroying your own foundations, you can destroy it and burn 1 for your rival. In other characters, I'll give it a B. That's not, it's a 0 difficulty foundation. 0 difficulty foundations don't have to be good to see play. They just have to be doing something. And here, burn 1 is fine. But if you're Jester or not, this is an A+++. Putting Breaker 2 on a 0 diff is always going to be good. Mischievous Doodler. 2 diff, 2 low block, 5 check. Commit 1 foundation. Your spell attack gains stun 1. If it is blocked, mill 1. Honestly, commit 1 for stun 1 is a pretty heavy cost, in my opinion. And then if it's blocked, mill 1, you can kind of disregard that. But then it's gated into just spell attacks. So you have to be playing this spell attack lineup for this foundation to really be worth it. I don't see that happening. C tier. 2 diff, playing pranks, 3 high block. You can flip after you block an attack, mill 1. If you milled an attack this way, the next attack your rival tries to play gets +2 difficulty. Otherwise, their next attack gets -1 speed and -2 damage. Okay, most of the time, the best thing you can be doing with this is flipping to make your rival's next attack gets 2 difficulty. But then what you're saying is, I would rather just play Keiko's Aid. Keiko's, it's also a 3 high block, and it just always does the thing. I guess it's on different symbols. Here, I've got a copy of Keiko's Aid I'm looking at as we speak. Keiko's Aid is death, good, and life. Okay, and this is chaos, fire, and void. So we are on different symbols, but it's basically just worse Keiko's Aid. But -1 speed and -2 damage isn't bad either. It's just not something that I want to be flipping my 2 difficulty foundation for. I want to flip it for that +2 difficulty effect. 2 diff, spreading the word, 3 mid block. Commit, add a pamphlet counter to a card in your rival stage. This attack gets +2 speed. Response, at the start of your combat phase, if your rival has 10 or more foundations with pamphlet counters on them, you win the game. Let me just say first, a 2 difficulty foundation committing for 2 speed is not a great ratio, is not a great return, in my opinion. We have 1 diff foundations that flip for +2 speed. I'd rather do that all day than a 2 diff that commits for +2 speed. If you are playing spreading the word, you are playing it for that bottom response. At the start of your combat phase, if your rival has 10 or more foundations with pamphlet counters on them, you win the game. You basically only play this foundation if you want to play a spreading the word style deck where you're just trying to get all of your rival stuff with pamphlet counters and win the game that way. That's interesting. I think if you win with this card, it's going to feel amazing. But is that competitively viable? Heck no. Your rival can just destroy their foundations that have the pamphlet counters. Your rival could just not build to 10. Like if they have 9 foundations with 9 pamphlet counters, they just won't build one more. There's so many ways to play around this. It's not competitively viable. Will it be fun when you take your spreading the word deck to locals and it actually wins you the game? Yes, it will be a lot of fun. It's going to be a picture-worthy moment. Put it to the universe's Facebook group. Everybody will have a laugh with you, but it's not good. 1 diff, the best detectives, 3 mid block. Enhance, flip mill 3. If you milled a spell card this way, draw 1 card. So it's a 1 diff that can flip to draw. I always like those, but this is too heavily gated. You have to mill a spell card this way. Even if you're playing 33% of your deck as spell cards, there's still no guarantee that this is actually working. I'd rather play a 1 difficulty foundation that always works, where I always get to flip it for drawing a card. B-. The Traveler's Favorite. 6 check, 3 mid block, 2 diff. Enhance, if a card has been added to your hand from the discard pile this enhanced step, this attack gets 1 damage. I was kind of shocked when I read this and realized it said this enhanced step and not this combat phase. Because it's been pretty well established in this game that a 2 difficulty foundation is allowed to give 1 damage to all of your attacks. Or 1 speed. You know, it's allowed for 1 stat for all of your attacks from a 2 diff foundation. But this is saying if a card has been added to your hand from the discard pile, this enhanced step. It's not even like those evil cards that say if a card has been played from outside your hand, this combat phase. It's saying from your discard pile to your hand. That's very, very specific. And then it says this enhanced step. So there's, you know, you're working hard basically to get this to go off once per turn. And that's quite terrible. The 6 check is not going to save this card. C tier. Trickster's Blessing, 1 diff, 2 high block, spell Tenacious. After this card is committed during an attack, add 1 card from either player's discard pile to the bottom of their deck. Okay, you could, if you're playing against Hawks, you know, put his feather on the bottom of your deck. Maybe if you only have 5 cards in your deck, you can, you know, put, let's say you have 2 cards in your deck. Maybe you put a 5 check there nicely, or maybe you put an attack so you can draw it on your next turn. I don't think this is doing nearly enough to justify its inclusion in your deck. I'll give it a C+ because I'm sure there's something here that someone smarter than me will be finding out. Someone's probably watching this and yelling at the screen about all the cool applications this card has that I'm just totally blanking on right now. But C+, it's certainly not obvious the benefit that this is having in your deck. Unbreakable Cheer, 2 def, 2 high block, 4 check. Flip, after you mill 1 or more cards, add 1 of them to the top of your deck. Okay, so you can flip and then maybe put an attack on top of your deck, and then if you have any way to draw, you can draw that attack. That's going to be nice, but you're playing a 2 diff that needs to combo with something to really work. I guess you could just stack a 6 check on your deck sometimes. That's all you need. And then you don't have to combo with anything. But if you want to be using it to draw an attack, you do have to combo with something. And that's most of the time what I'm thinking about. Like if I'm Endeavor 3, for example, on fire, I mill 4 cards, I got a really good attack. Hey, put that on top, and then I'm going to draw it with something else. But it's not worth the 2 def 4 check. C+. All in all, for the Mighty Nein deck, I have 2 A tier cards, Knott's Flask and Big Frickin' Explosion, 10 B tier cards, and 7 C tier cards. Competitively speaking, I think the Mighty Nein deck has the edge over the Vax Machina deck. Character-wise, I think the Vax Machina deck has the edge over the Mighty Nein deck. So if you're just going for powerful characters, go for Vax Machina. If you're going for competitively viable cards, go for the Mighty Nein deck. Ultimately, if you're a competitive player and you're buying Mighty Nein, you're doing it to get Knott's Flask and Big Frickin' Explosion. Both of these cards will have a pretty good impact on the metagame. But all in all, like I said at the very beginning, let's go to my reviews for this. Like I said at the very beginning, out of the box experience, I think is an A for these decks. The card art and the collectability is an A+. I love the way these cards pop. I think that you're going to have some money cards in your collector booster packs, especially the characters. The characters themselves are an A. Even if some of them aren't quite A tier in terms of competitiveness, they are A tier in terms of fun. And then competitive viability, this is a C, a big disappointment. If you're a veteran of the game and you're just buy product to help your competitive deck get better, I think you can skip these products and just buy singles. That is my ultimate review. I think they knocked it out of the park in every single other aspect other than competitiveness. That was left just a little wanting. For myself, I'm going to go out and buy 1 of each. And that is going to do it for my Critical Role grades. Let me know if you don't agree with any of my takes and why, and drop that in the comments below. But I'll see you next time.